not moving around much. Their muscles will be even less well developed. They will definitely not have scales or defensive structures. They're going to have very weak skeletons, and they will not have swim bladders. Right? So all of those adaptations apply to an even greater degree in the deep sea. So they are literally just kind of like sitting there in the water column, waiting for something to come by so that they can eat it. And they use as little energy as possible while they wait for that to happen. So they're just like hanging out down here, hoping something swims by. They also are going to have big mouths and expandable stomachs so that they can eat whatever comes by. They also will not be picky. I think, and you saw this in the video, the Blue Planet video that we watched, the gulper and swallower eels are kind of like the epitome of these like big mouths compared to body size. So you saw these in the video, but this is a gulper eel. So that's the one that had like the big tail that's hanging down. Okay, that's a gulper eel. So you can see just how big its mouth is compared to the rest of its body, which is kind of extreme and crazy looking. And then that's a swallower eel. So you can see also the size of its mouth compared to like its neck at least. Crazy. And notice like coloration of it, yeah? It's weird, like pinky orange, and then the eyes. The small little eyes. So strange. So it's also hard to find a mate down here because, again, total darkness. And the creatures down here are few and far between. And, I mean, there's many things that live down here, but because the habitat is so large, they're very spread out. So it's very hard to find a mate. And when you find a mate, you not only have to find, like, someone of your same species, but then you also have to find someone of an opposite gender, right? You can't have two females that can reproduce. You have to have same species, opposite gender. So you have two factors that need to, be right in order for you to reproduce. So what the animals in the deep sea a lot of times do is they are hermaphrodites. So they're both male and female at the same time, so it kind of takes out one of those factors. So all they have to do is find an animal that's the same species as them, and it doesn't matter if they're male or female, they're both, so they can reproduce. So it takes out one of those factors and makes it easier to find a mate in the deep sea. Like we talked about before, anglerfish, one of the most common types of fish down here, they're going to do male parasitism, where the male will actually like bite onto the female's body and then be a parasite on her for the rest of his life. And so whenever she's ready to reproduce, he is there to fertilize those eggs. So male parasitism is one of the things that happens. How they actually attract mates as well, it's kind of weird. With bioluminescence, so if they can like be flashing, right, and they can see that flashing, then they will attract mates that way. Or some of them will actually release these chemicals into the water called pheromones, and the same species can detect those, and they will follow the chemical trails to where that animal is, and then they can reproduce. So yeah, humans actually produce pheromones as well. So you produce certain pheromones that are unique to you, and that's actually one of the things that comes into play with like who we find attractive and stuff like that, is the pheromones that you release. Kind of weird, huh? The chemicals that you put off can be attractive to people. Okay. So here's a couple pictures of anglerfish with their male parasites. So this big one is the female, and then you can see the little anglerfish hanging off, the little male anglerfish hanging off of the female. And then here's another one. So you can see this is the female, and then you got the little male hanging off of the female. Parasite on the female. And they're so attractive. So it's cold, it's dark, there's not a lot of food, it's hard to find a mate, and there's a lot of pressure. So it's like, this is a very hard environment for animals to live in. Basically, the pressure is one of the reasons why it's so hard for us to go down here and actually study and learn about the animals that live down here. because of the amount of pressure that you're under. So at sea level, when you're like at the beach, you are at 1 atmosphere of pressure. And down in the bottom of like the deepest trenches, you'd be at 14,700 psi, pounds per square inch. What that means is 1 atmosphere, I believe, is about like 1 pound of pressure for every square inch on your body. So every square inch on your body, you have 1 pound like weighing on you. And the deep sea, down in the trenches, that means that every square inch on your body, you have 14,700 pounds per every square inch on your body. That is a crushing pressure. That is extremely, extremely high pressures. So that would literally crush your body to pieces if you were to go down there. So that crushing pressure is what makes it so hard to bring animals up from the deep sea, is because they can't withstand those huge pressure changes, so it kills them. Just like it would kill you to try and go down there, it kills them to try and come up to our pressures. As you go down in the water, you add 1 atmosphere of pressure for every about 33 feet that you go down. They have chemicals in their body that allow for them to do that. So here, we'll explain that in just a second. So because of this enormous crushing pressure, they don't have swim bladders, because that would be literally impossible to like have a swim bladder. Can you imagine trying to keep a balloon inflated full of gas at those pressures? Impossible. So they don't have swim bladders, because it would be way, way, way too hard. And because of this pressure, the number of species declines as you go down, because there's fewer and fewer animals that can actually deal with this kind of pressure. So when you get down to the deep sea, you may find like kinds of, on the bottom you may find things like echinoderms. In the water column, you're going to find lots of jellies, and then like some kinds of fish. Okay, so there will be fewer and fewer things that can withstand this pressure. So this picture is to help you see this. You have the epipelagic zone, where there's lots of plankton. Okay, so this little line here represents plankton. This represents the amount of light, and then the number of species as you go down. And here's your little thermocline. So you can see in the epipelagic, number one, how thin that little slice of the epipelagic is compared to the rest. So epipelagic, lots of plankton. Okay, here's the mesopelagic, between 200 and 1,000 meters, less plankton. Here you can see like the little oxygen minimum layer. That's like right where that would be. And you can see the number of species you find here. And then here, below 1,000 meters, that's your deep sea. And you can see the number of types of species declines as you go down. And also the amount of food declines as you go down. All right? And also, well, there's no light. It's complete darkness. So you can see like how this could actually be like the biggest habitat on Earth. Yeah? Makes up most of the ocean. So the only way that the cells of these animals can actually work under these pressures is by having specialized enzymes. So you remember back from freshman bio, hopefully, how your cells have enzymes, which are proteins, and those enzymes do all of the work of like all of the chemical processes in your cells that allow for you to live. So those enzymes that we have would not work under the pressure that the deep sea animals are under. So that's one of the reasons why we would die as we go down there. But these animals actually have specialized enzymes that can work under these pressures, so they're able to survive. Or they can also have like chemicals in their cells at high concentrations that like stabilize the enzymes to keep them from like not working. So those chemicals that are in their cells that stabilize those enzymes work under that pressure, but when you bring them up to the surface, those chemicals are actually toxic to the cell, and it kills the animals because those they're toxic, basically. Okay, so the enzymes are specialized, or they have chemicals to stabilize the enzymes so that they can actually work under these pressures on a cellular level to keep them alive, whereas you would die because you don't have this stuff.